Happy Monday, and welcome to today's press briefing. Today, the North Dakota Department of Health confirmed 34 additional cases, positive cases of the novel coronavirus disease, or COVID-19, out of 1,411 tests. And again, for those that are listening in, this would be tests that were completed over the 24-hour period of yesterday, Sunday. Since we had our last press conference on Friday, we reported 46 additional cases on Saturday, and those would have been from tests taken on during the 24-hour period on Friday. And on Sunday, we reported 38 additional cases, positive cases, from Saturday. Health Department also reported a total of 3,828 tests that were completed over the weekend. The good news from all this testing over the weekend is that our confirmed positive rate remains among the lowest in the nation, 2.4% today. It was 1.9% on Friday, 2.3% on Saturday, 2.1% yesterday. So again, all low numbers. Sadly, though, we must report 2 additional deaths over the weekend related to COVID-19, bringing to a total of 25 North Dakotans who've passed away with conditions including COVID-19. Reported on Saturday, individual was a male in his 70s from Cass County, and on Sunday, a male in his 90s from Cass County. Both had underlying health conditions, but again, as always, from the First Lady and myself, our hearts go out to the loved ones and all of those who've lost, individuals who've lost someone during this pandemic. And while it's tragic to have lost 25 people, I was just on a call earlier today with the Vice President and governors from around the country, and it reminds us how fortunate we are here in North Dakota. Governor Phil Murphy was on the call and was relating that 7,900 citizens in New Jersey have passed away during this pandemic. So again, there's always things to be grateful for in North Dakota, and how we're faring through this pandemic compared to the rest of the country and other parts of the world is just another one of those things we can add to our list. North Dakota's conducted 34,754 tests with a total of cumulative total of 1,225 positives. And if you divide those two numbers, positives over the denominator, it's 3.5% since the COVID-19 testing began, since our first case back on March 11th. And again, that number is now trending downward at 3.5%, that cumulative average positive rate, 5th lowest in the country, behind Alaska, Hawaii, West Virginia, and our neighbor to the west, Montana. On the testing front, as again we talked about on Friday, North Dakota had been climbing on the leaderboard in terms of testing per capita to 4th in the nation. But again, from the call from the governors today, for us to maintain that position, the only states leading ahead of us are 3 states who've been right in the heart of the majority of this outbreak: Rhode Island, New York, and Massachusetts. And again, Governor Charlie Baker was on the call this morning in Massachusetts. They've got labs, private labs and university labs that have been called into action. So they've got a lot of testing resources plus what the feds have given them. But North Dakota is right in the hunt in terms of testing per capita. But we're going to have to work much harder going forward if we're going to maintain that position, because everybody knows that testing is part of the key to when we think ahead to the fall, when we think about schools and universities, we think about activities, we think about long-term care, we think about manufacturing. Testing is the key, so we still have got a lot of work to do to make sure that we can stay safe, even though we're faring really well to date. On the net case breakdown, when we net out those that have recovered or who have passed away, we end up with 660 confirmed cases. This number is, again, higher. It's a net increase of 11 over yesterday because we had 23 recovered that went along with the 34 new cases that we reported today. So again, good set of recovery, and we've got 540 people who've now recovered. We would anticipate if things keep going well, at some point in the future we'll end up with more recovered than we have active, but we're not there yet. But that's another moment that we'll look forward to. When we take a look at the case trends, again, on this slide, where above the line is the actives and below the line is people who've passed away or who have recovered. Again, you can see that we continue to climb, but not at a steep rate going forward. And when we take a look at that in terms of, we'll drill down some more on geography on these positives in a minute, but when we take a look at the aggregate for the whole state on the continued decline in the positive rate, this is one of the measures that we were looking at when we were going through the North Dakota Smart Restart. This is one of the White House metrics, which is a rate, positive rate cumulative over the last 14 days is declining, and this has been a rolling average is really nearly 3% less than our current high of 6.4. It's the lowest we've seen since April 13th, and so those are all good things. But we still have some challenges. And we take a look at information by county. When we take a look at active cases by county, this really relates back to understanding how the virus can move and why we still have to be really keep our attention on this going forward. With the 660 active cases, 83.2% of those active cases reside in 2 counties, and while Cass is our most populous county, in Grand Forks, we know had a single outbreak that took them from one of the least percentage counties to one of the highest. We know that kind of an outbreak could happen anywhere in the state, and so we know that this concentration of active cases, it means that we have to put more attention in that area. If we take a look at the case rate by county, again, if it's 8.7 is the active cases per 10,000 people in the state. Again, this is very low, which is a good number that it's that low relative to the nation. We've got 4 counties that are above it, and the remaining counties with actives are below that. But Dunn and Stark in the west, again, more than any of the neighbors that they have around them, and but in Cass County and in Grand Forks actually having the highest number of cases per 10,000 people in the state. When we take a look at the positive test rate, which again, this is the rate that we're taking that feeds into our cumulative and our 14-day rolling average. Again, we've got 4 counties, or I guess 3 counties here that we're showing that are highlighted in the darker color that have more than 7%. We have 3 counties, Dunn in the west, Cass and Grand Forks, that have positive rates that are more than double what the state average. And of course, that means we've got many counties that are below the state average as they come together. But again, in Cass, Grand Forks, and Dunn, almost more than double the state average in terms of percent positives. And so what does this mean? And what it means is that when we take a look at this as our leadership team, the Unified Command that kept meeting over the weekend and had a briefing with them this morning, is that we're putting even more resources together. The so what of this data is if we have outbreaks that are occurring in more concentrated areas, this means that in some ways we're making progress in many parts of the state from a geographic standpoint, but in some areas we're not. And so we need to make sure that if we got 83% of our cases, it won't be 83% of our resources, but we need to have an amplification of the kind of resources. So that means beefing up our testing, beefing up our contact tracing, beefing up our energy, and again, calling on citizens to make sure that as they practice North Dakota Smart, particularly in these counties with high percentages and high number of actives, you literally have a higher percentage chance of contracting it because there may be more people there that are spreading it. And when we know that there are people that we're testing, there may also be people who are asymptomatic that are there that could also have been in close contact with those positives. So again, we have to really maintain our vigilance in those particular counties. So you'll see again you'll hear more on Wednesday, but our unified command will be deploying more resources to these areas, and those strategies will include more targeted testing and tight partnerships with local leadership, local public health, and again our Physicians Advisory Board, epidemiologists, Department of Health are going to be digging into all this data. We're taking a look at it down to again on the contact tracing where people work and where people may have come in close contact with each other to make sure that as we're doing our testing, we can really connect with those who may already have been who have been in close contact with the positives that are coming up, this 30 plus that are coming up on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that are coming out of the Cass County, for example, because again, almost 3/4 of the positives in the last 3 days have come out of Cass County. We want to make sure that we are there and trying to stop the spread of the people associated with those that are coming up positive. So we'll keep driving on that and give you more of an update on Wednesday. As far as testing shortage, again, you saw that our numbers were lower today in testing than they have been when we cleared the 2,000 mark, and we're back down to 1,300. And we've been aggressively trying to ramp up our testing capacity just in the state lab alone, which did typically even a big day in the pre COVID days, 195 tests per day would have been a big number, and that would have covered all kinds of things, not just a single disease category like COVID. But now we're running that lab 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and have built capacity to do over 2,000 tests a day and trying to grow that to 4,000 and then trying to grow it beyond that. And so again, we are building that capacity, but that capacity also depends on availability of assortment of supplies that all need to come together through a supply chain. And today we did run into a shortage of deep well plates on our thermal Fisher testing machine. This unit has 19 different consumable pieces that must be on hand to run one test. I know some people think all we need is a swab and a machine and away you go, but this is a super complicated work, and the team has been doing a great job on this. And of course, in this environment they're in normal times, supply chain management can be challenging, but now when we're competing against all other 50 states, you've got FEMA, you've got other federal agencies that are competing, trying to move orders around to the hot spots, of which we're not. But our team has done a great job of allowing us to grow, as we said, and move up to number 4 in the nation in tests per capita. But we did have a glitch here related to these shortage of deep well plates, and for a while we thought that was going to be a major holdup. The good news, it turns out that through our research universities, in particular the NDSU Diagnostic Lab, had 100 of these, and each one of these deep well plates, this is kind of vertical view, but think of it as, I won't say test tubes, but if you're going back to high school chemistry, they would go into these plates. They can hold up to 96 apiece. Samples in here, 100 of these plates will get us 9,600 capacity, and this will help us get us back up to at least 1,875 tests per day by tomorrow. But again, I want to thank the lab team and everybody there that's exploring every option from private to public to make sure that we keep ourselves going. But with this shortage that we had over the weekend, the backlog has backed up. We now have thousands of tests that have been collected that have not yet been processed. So we'll have some big testing numbers to report in days ahead as we clear that backlog. And again, sentinel testing, as we call it, which we're doing to try to make sure that we can get out ahead of the virus, as opposed to if we're trying to invite people who've been exposed to a positive close contacts with a positive. We know that we're going to hopefully catch and stop the spread, but when we do sentinel testing in areas where we maybe have not done as much, and whether that's Williston or Devil's Lake, Minot, or Wahpeton, we want to get out there and try to find the virus before it starts really transferring, and that can include residents in long-term care facilities, people that are identified through public health clusters or contact healthcare facility workers and others. And so again, we're going to continue to do the outbound testing, and again, for each of you, while we're going into details here about what's going on at the state lab, We still have got the Sanford lab, the Mayo lab, and other national labs available for running tests, but we have been relying over 80% of the tests we're reporting every day have been coming through the work at the state lab, but we'll continue to work with other lab partners as well. And again, if you're symptomatic and want to get tested, please call your provider, call ahead of time. They've got the testing supplies and equipment to get your test and get it collected. So again, if you're symptomatic, please make sure you get tested. And again, we remain completely and totally committed to expanding our testing capacity, and we're going to keep charging through all of this. And again, thanks to the team for their creativity. Thanks to NDSU for helping us come up with a solution to this supply chain issue. The next topic is parks and recreation. As the weather warms up, we know that there are many North Dakotans who are looking to get outside and maybe go camping for a weekend. I'm sure there's a smaller set of people like myself when I was younger that loved winter camping, but this is a great time to be starting thinking about getting out in the beautiful outdoors. North Dakota Parks and Rec manages 15 beautiful parks and recreation areas across North Dakota. If you haven't been to all of them, get your passport and start thinking about visiting. This might be a great year to do that. If your travels maybe be more in-state than out-of-state, they've got incredible hiking trails, great opportunities for day use. They have, many of them have boat ramps or in other additional services, including camping. As we had previously announced, the parks have remained open and people can go in them. The playgrounds and the camping had been suspended till May 21st. Thanks to a great effort over this past week and over this weekend, I want to thank everybody who works for North Dakota Parks and Recs because I'm excited to announce that the campgrounds are going to be opened on a limited basis now on May 9th, not on May 21st, so we're pulling that forward. There are some exclusions to this, which including the Little Missouri Bay State Park will remain on the May 21st schedule, but all the others will be on May 9th. And when they're open for camping, but limited camping also means some limited surfaces. If we have campsites that are too close together to each other, then only every other one is going to be available for reservation or camping, because the buildings on the property and the food service concession, those things, whether it's hay for horses, fuel, ice, firewood, those are not going to be open at this point in time. So you need to, the offices and facilities, you've got to get your vehicle pass and your camping registrations must all be done online. The good news is there's a new online reservation system that came online last year, so you can be able to do that. Whether it's a horse permit or an annual permit, you can get those completed online as well. If you're a marina slip renter, you can bring boats in also starting on May 9th. And I know that there are many people that enjoy this as part of their key part of their summer. There's not going to be any equipment rentals available until Memorial Day weekend. Part of that is just staffing as we get summer staff on. There's not going to be any programming, whether those are ranger talks, those things may be available through digital formats to all the public, whether you're visiting there or not. And so again, I want to just say thank you to all of our full-time and our seasonal team members at North Dakota Parks and Recs for taking care of our parks, keeping North Dakotans safe and healthy. And when you're visiting the parks, remember to be North Dakota smart, practice smart physical distancing, wash your hands, and if you are not feeling well, and we're recommending the great outdoors, get outdoors, but please stay away from a state park where there may be lots of other folks there. Again, you use your good North Dakota smart common sense. One last note on this, we do have some beautiful cabins and yurts at those state parks, which people enjoy due to, for cleaning and disinfecting purposes. Those are also going to remain closed until further notice. But again, if you've made a reservation online, they'll work to honor that already, but they are taking reservations online for limited camping on May 9th. Next topic has to do with the unemployment numbers. And on Friday, we had regular claims of Friday plus the weekend, 1,380 regular claims. The pandemic unemployment assistance, 298. Pandemic emergency unemployment claims, 314, which brings the total regular claims since March 16th to just under 70,000, 69,851. The PUA since April 4th, 10,240. PEUC, 10,937. Trust fund balance is at $128.6 million. And again, we have the opportunity to use the CARES Act to back that up, so no concerns there. The next topic is behavioral health update. And again, we want to focus on the remarkable resilience of people who are in recovery and the recovery communities that have continued to work and support those in recovery as they face this pandemic. And as the First Lady knows, as a person in recovery, she's taken made great use of recovery communities, and I can just know that there's incredible work that's going on. As we know that addiction is one of the biggest challenges that we face as a nation with untold cost related to the disease of addiction. But there are many people who are in recovery from the disease of addiction, and those people work in every role that you can imagine. And maybe they're doing that silently, and maybe you don't even know they're in recovery. But people in recovery are working as physicians and nurses and allied health professionals, police officers, first responders, postal workers, bus drivers, farmers, grocery workers, and food delivery workers. They're National Guard members and other essential roles. They're donating money, they're sewing masks, they're volunteering at food banks, they're checking in on the most isolated family members and friends, and they're providing personal support to the most vulnerable members of the community. Because we know the disease of addiction touches almost every family in America and certainly every community. So you know that there are people in recovery around you that are going through this challenging time, and we want to just recognize and honor the resilience and courage of all those in recovery, and for not only maintaining their recovery, but also to giving back to their communities and to their neighborhoods and their family. Next up topic, Commerce Business Briefing coming up this Thursday, May 7th. Special guest, Neil Kaskari, president of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve, will be one of the presenters. It's at 11 a.m. The North Dakota Department of Commerce is helping to organize. The Greater North Dakota Chamber, GNDC, is one of the hosts. You go to the GNDC website, I believe, if you want to register. ndchamber.com is where you register. Michelle Comer is going to be leading this. And again, if you've got questions ahead of time for the Minneapolis Federal Reserve president, which includes our region in the state of North Dakota as part of that region of the Fed. Please send those questions in ahead of time when you submit your questions at the time of registration. But again, thanks to Michelle Comer and the great team at Commerce for everything they're doing. Thanks to the ND Chamber for hosting that. Make sure you reserve your space now for that 11 a.m. You do not have to be a member of the North Dakota Chamber. There will be lots of educational information about all the federal and state programs, the Bank of North Dakota programs during that call. So if you're a self-employed or you're a small business owner, if you're engaged in commerce in North Dakota, it would be very valuable to dial into those very informative and structured briefings, 11 a.m. this Thursday. Okay, next topic relates to both good news and gratitude. And this has to do with this week right now, May 3 to 9th, is Travel and Tourism Week in North Dakota. I signed a proclamation regarding to this, but it's highlighting that tourism is very important in North Dakota, employs more than 42,000 people across the travel and tourism business in North Dakota, more than 2,900 businesses in our state, and visitors back in 2018 spent $3.1 billion in North Dakota. It's a major contributor to the state's GDP, and as we continue to develop our tourism assets, it helps us diversify our economy and makes every Main Street stronger. North Dakota's loss in spending due to COVID-19 through April 25th is estimated to be over $281 million. The loss in state tax revenue associated with those visits, over $7 million. So COVID-19 has, of course, affected the downturn of economic activity has affected virtually every industry, except maybe the hand sanitizer industry and a few others. But it had a huge impact on travel and tourism, and we're grateful to the entrepreneurs, small business owners, the venue managers, the community event planners, convention and visitors bureaus, whose hard work continues to inspire travel to North Dakota and to support those businesses that not only attract visitors but make our communities vibrant and fun. Today, there was hosted by Sarah Otta Coleman in the North Dakota Department of Tourism, which is part of North Dakota Commerce, a video conference. Normally this is part of the big spring conference that is held, tourism conference statewide, where we give out awards, but we were able to do it online today. I had a chance to drop into that video conference and share my congratulations. But we were announced earlier today the 2020 Governor's Travel and Tourism Awards. I'd like to recognize them publicly here. The Sakakawea Award for Behind the Scenes Tourism Employee goes to Johannes Olvaka at the International Peace Garden up on our border with our neighbor to the north, Manitoba. And the Telegraph Award for Marketing Technology goes to Julie Obergewich from the Dickinson Convention and Visitors Bureau. The Heritage Award for Frontline Tourism Team Member goes to Yvonne Feist from the Holiday Inn Express and Suites in Minot. The Flint Firestarter Award for Tourism Development Project goes to Mike Freilich at the Laughing Sun Brewery in Bismarck. The Trailblazer Award for Tourism Innovation goes to Joe Stickler, PhD, Medicine Wheel Park in Valley City. And then the Lifetime Achievement Award, which is called the Legend Award for Travel and Tourism Industry, goes to our very own Claudia Berg, the longtime leader of the North Dakota State Historical Society. Congratulations to all of our winners, and a special shout out to Claudia. She's retiring this summer. Thank you for all of your service to the state of North Dakota. On another note, tomorrow, North Dakota filmmakers will present a live online video pitches where one North Dakota filmmaker will be awarded $25,000 to produce 3 short films that visually connect unique stories of place in a way that builds pride, appreciation, and awareness of North Dakota's communities for both residents and non-residents. This live online pitch competition is free to participate, and the public, so even if you're not making a pitch, if you just want to watch the film pitches from some creative North Dakota filmmakers, it begins at 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time. You can go to ndtourism.com, filmnorthdakota.com for more information. So under the ndtourism.com, look for Film North Dakota. Tourism is well positioned to rebound quickly given North Dakota's assets in our abundant natural resources and accessible outdoors, advantages in our hospitality and lack of crowds. Our industry has the potential to rebound faster than other destinations. And I want to say again, thank you to the entrepreneurs, small business owners, venue managers, community events planners, convention visitors bureaus for leading the way and helping North Dakotans be legendary. And I would just say again, as we figure out a way on the North Dakota Smart Restart, there's certainly some thinking that we will see an uptick in automobile traffic and maybe a decrease in airline traffic. We'll see an uptick in where people want to go to places that are more wide open and less crowded. So there'll probably be more rural vacations, if you will, to rural states and less urban. This could play well if we're in a position to be able to manage our way through the coronavirus. This could, again, help North Dakota's economy this summer when we're challenged in other areas. And so, again, we'll proceed smartly as we go through this. But again, we want to thank all these winners. We want to thank everybody from that works in tourism in North Dakota. And also, we look forward to a strong but safe summer tourism experiences. Next up is gratitude, then we'll go to Q&A. But under gratitude, I want to just have share a quote, because I think sometimes we think gratitude is a modern discovery, but this comes a quote from English poet John Milton. But John Milton lived in the 1600s, from 1608 to 1674, and he said, "Gratitude bestows reverence, allowing us to encounter everyday epiphanies whose transcendent moments of awe that change forever how we experience life and the world." And I think sometimes all we have to do is look outside as spring arrives and we see life blooming all around us. It's take a pause and understand that awe when we think about agriculture and what this great state's able to produce year in and year out. When we think about all the gifts that have been given us in this great state of North Dakota, we have an opportunity to have those transcendent moments of awe every single day that can change forever how we experience life in the world, and I'd say change how we experience life in North Dakota. So again, thank you all for not only being North Dakota smart, but being North Dakota grateful, because there's plenty of opportunity, again, for us to be grateful for the great things we have in our state. I want to say again, before we go to Q&A, I want to thank the team and everybody here. This is the 44th press conference we've held. Many of you that are in the room have had perfect attendance. I'm sure we have people at home that have had perfect attendance. As we move further into North Dakota Smart Restart and our business and citizens are getting back to work, we want to make sure that we continue to keep North Dakotans informed with facts, not fear. And having said that, we're going to be now holding our press conferences 3 times a week. We'll add additional press briefings as needed, but we will be back here at 3:30 on Wednesday is when we're going to be back again. But I would say again, hard for people to understand the amount of work that goes into the press conferences every day by a small team of people that have had basically no days off in the last 2 months. And again, our hardworking small press corps in North Dakota, we thank them for their time and attention. But we do, as we go to 3-day-a-week schedule, we remain completely and totally committed to providing high quality information in a timely manner. So on those days we're not here, look to our online announcements and press releases we'll keep releasing the daily information on positives every morning at 11 a.m. as we have been, and we'll keep everybody abreast of what's moving forward. So with that, we'll go to questions. I think we'll go with Dave first, and then Amy, and then Lane.
Okay, Governor, just to clarify a little bit about the testing glitch today. When do you think that glitch is going to be taken care of so that there could be those mobile tests again?
Well, I've got Christy here from the lab, and I'll look at her if confirmation if I'm off on this, but my understanding, just being brief prior to this, with NDSU stepping forward with the deep trays that we needed, that's going to allow us to get this thermal Fisher machine back online, and that when it comes back online, we're going to start working through this backlog. So the hope is it will be back up to full capacity to process 1,875 tests at the state lab tomorrow. She's nodding affirmative on that one. So
I had a question about the testing event that happened here in Bismarck on Saturday. Have any of those results been reported in the numbers maybe yesterday or today, or are those caught up in this backlog and we might expect them within the next few days?
I might have to ask Christy on that one. Okay, the ones from Bismarck are backlogged. Okay, we're going to Lane and then online.
Governor, starting today, the state of Missouri is allowing large events and concerts to continue. Is that going to be looked at as kind of like a reference point for when North Dakota decides to allow those events?
Absolutely. We have the advantage here, particularly as we head into summer, whether it's county fairs or baseball or other outdoor concert venues, those kinds of things, or those seasons typically start earlier in states to the south of us. And so as we have throughout this, we'll have an opportunity to learn from what other states are doing.
Mike Smith, 660 KYZ in Williston. Because testing events were canceled in Fargo and Williston due to the shortage, will Department of Health plan for new dates in these locations for testing in the future?
The answer to that question is yes. Don't have the dates to announce at this time, but stay tuned with local media for posting. But we haven't. I would say that no testing has been canceled. Testing has only been postponed, and as soon as we've got the capacity back up, we're going to be back on schedule to hold all the events that we'd originally scheduled. Jacob, and then Amy.
Governor, two-part question. In reference to the cancellations and the supply shortage from today, were the supply shortages in reference to the machines that test the data, and if so, or is it more of a collection of data? And I guess, what's the backlog capacity? If the supplies were based on an inability to test the samples rather than being able to collect the samples, how big of a backlog can we have?
Well, we estimate that I think the backlog right now is close to 5,000 that are stacked up from over the weekend in terms of tests that have been collected. But those tests are stable, and they can the virus can live. And so we don't have to worry about retesting any of those folks yet. If it got a little bit longer, there's an ability, I think we got the ability to freeze about 2,000 samples, which would give them a little longer shelf life. Hopefully we won't have to do that. The key here is getting all the equipment back up and running. And the good news is that our lab's got a diverse set of manufacturers, including both Abbott and Thermo Fisher and others. We had an expected reorder of all these components. As I said earlier, there are a lot of components that go into running each test. Some of that stuff you've got to throw away after each test to make sure you've got a clean environment. And in an order that came in was missing some supplies, and so then that sent our team scrambling creatively. And again, very fortunate in this case that NDSU lab had the same machine and the same deep well components that we were missing here that we were able to get. They're, I'm sure, on their way here right now. I'm not sure if it's in the back of a speeding highway patrol car, but there's this team that the team is working on this is doing everything they can to make sure we are getting those machines back up and running to work on that backlog. I'm going to jump back to Jeremy, and then we'll go online again.
I'm just wondering when the issue with the well plates arose in the first place. When did that occur?
The question was, when did the deep well plate issue first arise? It came up this weekend. I don't know if we have a specific hour of the day, or Christy, do we? Sunday, so yesterday.
And so that the numbers today, right? Just
In fact, that's why we're down to 1,300 today, because one of our machines went offline yesterday when we ran out of the components. I won't call them supplies, but components.
Hometown Radio Group, Ward County residents are asking why a community testing event has been scheduled in every other large community but not Minot. Once the supply issue is resolved, will the state make Minot a priority for a testing event?
The answer is yes, and I think I may have mentioned that in one of the cities that we're planning on getting back to in my remarks earlier, but absolutely yes, Jean will be there. And if she's, again, where we're trying to get everywhere, but again, one of the priorities has not just been focused on cities. Part of our outbound has also been focused on long-term care, because long-term care was where we were experiencing outbreaks, and then that's where we've got the highest potential mortality threat. So again, we were doing the visible, very visible, that we were holding drive-through events in communities, because that got a lot of publicity and a lot of coverage, but we're continuing to charge ahead with all of our testing to try to get to all long-term care facilities and all people that work in long-term care facilities by May 9th. That still is a goal, to try to get tests collected in all those locations. Amy?
I have two unrelated questions. The first one, of the testing events that were called off today, was it just ones in Williston and in Fargo, or were there any others?
I believe those are the only two for today. And not called off, postponed. Postponed because we're coming back as soon as we got these machines online.
Got it. And then you had mentioned, I think it was Little Missouri State Park, that's where camping is still going to reopen on May 21st instead of May 9th. Is there a particular reason that one's delayed?
I think it has to do with related to summer staffing. It's nothing related to the virus per se. And I do believe that the boat ramp is still open there. The park is still open, but it has to do with the ability to take camping reservations there. Yeah, Little Missouri Bay State Park. Camping reservations will open on May 21st. The other parks will start taking reservations for May 9th. online, and then Jacob.
April Baumgarten, the former Fargo Moorhead. There are still reports of supply shortages. How concerned are you about these reports as they relate to our ability to test residents, and could we possibly miss people and kind of lose ability to track the virus as testing is restricted?
I'm not, so on April's question, I'm not that worried about supply shortages. Again, on the call today with the White House, what's happened through both the private sector, federal government, state levels, nothing short of remarkable. I mean, there'll be testing occurring in May. By the time we get to the end of May, there may be more tests taken in 1 week in the U.S. than were taken in the entire pandemic in the country of Italy. So, I mean, there is just never before seen levels of testing occurring in our country, and then they've got to go even higher. I mean, if we want to get people back in stadiums, and we want to get people back in universities, and we want to get people back to where we were. So there's a huge commitment to ramping up this testing capability, and the numbers have gone, when they start talking about June, they're not talking about, you know, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. When they're talking about things like swabs, they're talking about millions or tens of millions. And so there's going to be, there may be intermittent challenges that are occurring right now, but I'm very confident that the supplies are going to keep rolling. And FEMA themselves has committed, each state has submitted a plan. FEMA has committed that they've got the resources to help support those states, particularly the state labs, if the state labs are carrying a big burden of the work, and that we're going to be receiving shipments once a week from FEMA throughout the month of May. So again, we'll have, you know, frustrating interruptions like this as we continue to build and scale capacity, but I'm confident in the long term that we're, both the country and North Dakota's heading in the right direction. I'm going to go Jacob and then Jeremy.
Quick camping one and then a daycare one. For camping, are showers and bathrooms going to be open on the campgrounds?
That is a detailed question that I think I'm going to have to say is you'll have to check campground by campground. I know for sure the vault toilets are going to be open. I know that. I'm not sure about showers. I think that this time of year they're still working on getting water turned on, and so I think that's another question to ask when you're making a reservation is whether or not they're going to have water turned on to all sites. I'm assuming that they'll have power up and going, but this is a big operation. I mean, you know, people that might say, hey, you got to, you know, if anybody's got a cabin that they open up in the spring and know all the routines you got to go through, this is doing this across 15 parks and recreations where we have over 100,000 visitor nights a summer. This is like opening up 15 hotels that have been closed for the wintertime. So a lot of work, and again, we've got a small staff of park and rec people that work for the state of North Dakota year round. And then we have a larger staff that comes online for summer. And so welcome back. Seasonal staff, we're great to have you here, and they're scrambling to hit this earlier date next week.
In reference to daycare, Governor, with businesses opening up but schools remaining shut down, wondering if there's going to be an update to the guidelines for certain daycares or allowing some daycares to open up?
Well, of course, we allowed daycares to stay open through the whole process. We created using some of the CARES Act dollars that came in, we created some programs that allowed us to help support those organizations that were providing daycare for essential workers. But I think it's a great question, a great idea that later on this week we'll add a child care update to either Wednesday or Friday. So good suggestion. Jeremy, and you're further away from the microphone than usual, so for all the people that love your questions, they want you to speak up.
In Los Angeles County, California, any resident, regardless of whether or not they have symptoms, can be tested at a city-run testing site. I'm wondering if there's any consideration for doing something like that, whether city-run or state-run in Fargo, which has more than half of the cases in the state.
And I couldn't quite hear the first part of that, but was it it's a city-run testing where anyone, regardless of whether they're symptomatic or not? Yeah, well, this is fantastic if they've got that kind of resource testing supply to do that, and I think that's a glimpse of the future where you'll be seeing as we move forward in this environment of anybody who wants to get tested can get tested, whether it's, peace of mind, whether they're a caregiver for a vulnerable family member, and they just want to be sure. Those are things that we'd like to have in our future. Right now, our prioritization around our testing as we ramp up from where we've gone from 200 to 2,000 to as we head to 4,000 and then to 6,000 as we do that. For some period of time, it's going to be healthcare workers, people in long-term care, people that are symptomatic, combined with what we call the sentinel testing, where we're actually going out and trying to test asymptomatic people in a patterned, strategic way, community by community, to try to identify and get ahead and see if we can detect the virus maybe before early. Detect it early. And then if we can do that, then we can do the targeted, with great contact tracing, we can do that targeted quarantining and isolation, and that way we can keep the state open and keep people safe at the same time. We want to do and, not or. Online?
Scott Hennon, WZFG KFYR Radio. We're still hearing from employers having difficulty getting their workforce to return given the generous unemployment benefits. Will you consider opting out of the extra $600 weekly benefit that the federal government had approved?
I think there's, the first part of that is true, that yes, we do hear from employers that some people are having a hard time getting people back because they're, with that extra $600 a week, people are making more on unemployment than they were in their prior job. This is one of the unintended effects of for employers in terms of the plan that was put together quickly and helped get dollars back into the economy. But it's a positive, I'm sure, for those workers to have that extra income. Of course, as we take a look at this, I know that the North Dakota Job Service is considering even setting up a special hotline to take calls related to this particular issue, because again, as we want to get our economy going, we've got to figure out a way to get folks back to work. And the way the rules are written, if your employer does offer you a job and you are eligible to go back to work and you say no, then at that point in time when you've turned down a job, then whether it was pre-coronavirus or post-coronavirus, if you turn down a job that you're skilled and able to fulfill, then you're not eligible for unemployment, because it's not, again, unemployment was meant to help people between jobs or who couldn't find jobs. It's not meant to pay people to not work. And it's, again, with this extra dollars that are in there, there's we're going to probably have to go through a little bit of whitewater on that for a while. But the good news is that federal program does run out. And to Scott's question specifically, we at this time don't have any plans of opting out of that, but we'll be monitoring this if we think we'll just monitor it and see how it's going between now and the time this summer when that program ends.
Related to state park showers and bathrooms, comfort stations will begin opening with limited access starting Memorial Day weekend.
Okay, could you hear that, Jacob? Dave?
Just to follow up again on the postponement of these mass testing events, is there a concern that this might discourage people just because they got the notification that these events are not happening now? How is a message need to be sent to encourage them to come back when these tests are going to resume again?
I'm sure there was some inconvenience and disappointment of people that said, hey, I'm going to go get tested, and then in an easy way, I'm not going to be able to do that. I would recommend it if anybody in any of these communities today, even though we're not having the mass drive-through testing, testing is available in all the communities. Testing is available all over the whole state today. I mean, if you've got symptoms, if you've got concerns, you've been in close contact with someone who's positive, if you've got any reason to believe, call your provider and go get tested. Don't wait till we reschedule the mass testing. Because there's plenty of kits and plenty of people collecting, and you can go get that test. But in terms of getting the word out again, I believe at every single one we've done of these, we've been oversubscribed. We've had more people show up than we've got capacity to handle, and so I'm not that concerned that we're going to have low attendance, at least in the near term, because there seems to be widespread interest and widespread participation. Anything else? Okay, we have a record short presentation today, but again, I want to thank all of you and everybody that's been listening for these past 44 sessions. Thank you. We're grateful for you for helping to get the right information to the right people at the right time. You play an important role as North Dakota citizens. Thank you for your individual responsibility, because you played a huge part in helping us end up with some of the best numbers in the country. And thanks again, a lot of questions today on testing, but thanks to everybody involved in the testing efforts. And Christy, thank everybody at the lab, because again, it's fantastic that a state like ours is near the top of the leaderboard in testing, but we know that we're going to have to work hard to stay there given the plans that I hear from other governors. I know we're up to the task, and that's going to be testing and contact tracing and targeted isolation are go hand in hand with our ability to have a North Dakota smart restart. And I would say again, there is another shout out to close out with, again, to North Dakota community bankers. Article just came out in the Wall Street Journal today talking about how local community bankers were the real heroes in helping to get the SBA payroll protection plan dollars out in this country. So to everybody at the Bank of North Dakota and all the community banks, congratulations. The Wall Street Journal article led with a story about the bar in Minto, North Dakota coming back online. So nice to get a little national press for Minto. And I hope they had a great opening weekend. I'm sure, like others, it was great to be back and have your favorite establishments open again. But all of you that were out and about this weekend, thank you for being North Dakota smart. If you keep doing it, because that's going to allow us to keep going and have a fantastic summer in North Dakota, whether it's for tourism, whether it's for farming, and whether it's for just general economic recovery. What you do and how you do it matters, so thank you for being North Dakota smart. And thank you again to all the press that's been here online or in person. Thanks for everybody watching. And again, please tune in on Wednesday at 3:30, because I'm sure after 2 days we'll have a jam-packed day of information. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
This is a KX News.